All right, hello once again. Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And I've been going over the W3 Schools jQuery tutorial. In the last lesson, I went through kind of the, for lack of better words, the major headings. The intro, the getting started, the syntax, the selectors, and the events. In this recording, I'm going to start going into the second part, which is on jQuery effects. So hopefully we'll get through all of these and maybe even a little further, we'll see. But we'll talk about fading, hide and show, slide, animation, stop, callback, and chaining. And again, many of the examples that we go through here, ideally at least to you, are going to be intuitive. All right? So when we look at this, and we've looked at an example similar to this before, what are we saying? Well, we're saying that find everything with an ID of hide. Whatever that is, when you click it, all right, when you click it, all right, hide all the paragraphs. Show does the opposite. So if we look in here, what do we have? Well, notice that we have a button that says hide and a button that says show. All right? Now, it says if you click on the hide button, I will disappear. Well, that's the paragraph right here. So again, what that's saying is, hey, anytime you click on anything with an ID of hide, and that's the button, hide all the paragraphs. Anytime you click on a button that says show, show all the paragraphs. So that should hide it, and that should bring it back again. It is a toggle, and we'll look at toggle in just a minute. Now, when you do this, as it says there are optional things that you can put in there, such as there is a speed, and I think that it defaults to normal, but you can put in slow, you can put in fast, and you can put in a number of milliseconds. All right, so it says here, this example demonstrates the speed parameter with hide. So 1,000, it's going to hide that, but it'll do it over 1 second. 1 Mississippi. Now that was a hide. You're going to see slide up, slide down, and a few other things in there, but that was a hide. And it did it, like I said, over a second. 1 Mississippi. There you go. Toggle allows you to what you probably would think, and that is, it says this is a paragraph with little content, this is another small paragraph. Toggle between showing and hiding the paragraphs. So these are just 2 paragraphs. Now previously we saw this, but we said hide or show. What toggle does is it combines hide and show together. Toggle is basically kind of like a light switch that says if it's off, turn it on. If it's on, turn it off. So notice they're gone, they're back. And again, there are more exercises here. And if you notice, because they do a nice job of this, look at that later, I guess. For a complete review of all jQuery effects, go to the jQuery effect reference. So all the stuff that we're going to talk about in here, you can go there and basically link to every single thing that's in there. That's why, again, I so strongly suggest that you take the time always when you're learning something new in this area to go and find its counterpart in the W3 schools. All right, so we were here. Let's go from hide and show, let's go to fade. Notice we can, again, fade in, fade out, fade toggle, and there's a fade to. So if we look at fade in, and again, this is all being done for effect. Again, it has a speed parameter. This is going to look very similar to what we saw before. Notice here, we're fading in 3 ways. This is the normal way, this is slow, and that's over 3 seconds. So here's our 3 divs. They all have different colors. They're red, green, and blue. All right, you should have noticed that this one faded in slowest, this one was in the middle, and that one faded in the fastest. Now, just so you're aware of this, they may bring this up in later examples. I don't know, but I'm going to try to be complete here. I'm going to grab this, and we're just going to call this on the desktop fades.html. All right. I think now I hope I'm giving you the right syntax here, but let's do this. Let's put in function. Alert, all divs have now faded into view. All right. I like to line stuff up. I sure think that this is my opinion that this makes this easier. So I would do it like this. Again, it might seem like a little overkill. But to me, once you start doing this, you really start seeing what lines up with what. It looks to me like I'm missing something here. So let's save this, and now let's see. Again, if I did this in a and there, all divs have faded into view. Now, I'm not trying to impress you with what I'm doing here. What I'm trying to show you is we can put in a callback function at the end. So if I want something special to happen at the end of any of these, I could have added a callback function here. I could have added a callback function here. It's just a second parameter that you end up adding. All right. Just as you can fade in, you can fade out. Same exact thing that we just looked at, except rather than saying fade in, we're saying fade out. And if you said, wow, is fade toggle coming next? You'd be right. So notice they're gone, and they're back. And they're gone, and they're back. What you can run into a little bit of a problem with this is I'm going to click it so that it fades out, but then I'm going to click it again. See that? So sometimes kind of weird stuff can happen with timing issues. All right. The fade to allows you to fade to a given opacity. All right. So you'll notice this is at 15%, 40%, and 70%. And again, as always, there are exercises in here. All right, let's jump over to slide. Slide down, slide up, and slide toggle. Slide is meant to look more or less like a window shade. Click the slide down panel. Okay. There's the panel that we're telling to slide down. Here's our CSS. I don't know why they did it exactly like this, but they did. It's just a simple div that says click the slide down panel, and panel just says hello world. Here's the panel. It's 50 pixels. Don't display it. Background color, etc. And this just says when you click the button that's associated with flip, run this function, which slides it down. And you probably can guess what's coming next. The next one would be slide up. So it works the same way, except it reverses it. And then finally, there is slide toggle, which toggles. Again, this stuff is being done for effect. That said, the usage of this should be tempered. And what I mean is you can put so much slide up, slide down, slide toggle, fade in, fade out, etc., that you lose the message because you just have so many different effects. So be leery of that. All right, next you can animate. The jQuery animate method lets you create animations. The syntax, you animate and there are parameters. Again, speed, you can have a callback function. As it says there, the required params parameter defines the CSS properties for the method. All right, so what are we saying here? We're telling this to animate to the left 250 pixels. By default, all HTML elements have a static position and cannot be moved. To manipulate the position, first set the CSS property of the element to either relative, fixed, or absolute. So if we look, we told it to move 250. For lack of better words, you can kind of look at it that we were putting in a 250 pixel margin, and that's what moved it. It's not exactly what's happening, but it's not a real bad way to look at it. And here we said absolute for the positioning. So if I grab this, copy it into my file, you see that it works. That shouldn't be a surprise, but if I remove the word, if I remove the position absolute from here, now there's no positioning set up with this. And you notice that I can't do anything with it then. Multiple properties can be animated at the same time. So what are we doing? Well, we want it to go left again. We want it to, the opacity to go down to half of a opacity. It currently is 100 by 100. We're changing it to 150 by 150. So this should move. While it moves, it should be get to be 1.5 times the height and width that it is, and its opacity should shrink down to 50%. There it is. The best way to learn with this stuff is to just sit, like I'm doing. Grab one of these, start playing with it, and see what you can do. It says, is it possible to manipulate all CSS properties with the animate method? Yes, almost. However, there is one important thing to remember. All property names must be camel-cased when you use the animate method. You will need to write padding left, like this. If you try writing it like this, what it's doing the jQuery has got, remember, it's a JavaScript library, so it thinks you mean padding minus left, which doesn't make sense. Color animation is not included in the core jQuery library. If you want to animate color, you need to download the Color Animations plugin, which we're going to look at that in a bit. It is also possible to define relative values. That is, the value is then relative to the element's current value by putting a plus equal or a minus equal. So again, let's look at that. There are predefined values. Notice as it says, you can even specify an animation's value as show, hide, or toggle. Again, I can't say this to you too many times. If you want to learn this stuff, bring up one of these examples and just start changing it. All right. Kind of made it go into a square. So we're telling it to animate in 4 different ways. We're first telling the height to go to 300 pixels. with an opacity of 4 slowly, then a width of 300 pixels. Remember, it's regularly 100 by 100. So we're telling it to get longer, then wider, then we're shrinking the height, then we're shrinking the width. Longer, wider, wider, etc. Again, you need the absolute, as I've already shown you. Here's another example. Notice in there we're animating text. So we said to animate the div, make it go left, 100 pixels slowly, then take the font size that's in there and slowly increase that so that it's triple the size. So there it is, left, increase. Just to show you that you can combine different types of elements. All right, let's go to stop. The jQuery stop method is used to stop animations or effects before it is finished. Again, there are examples here, but let's just look at what we've got right there. The jQuery stop method is used to stop an animation or effect before it is finished. Stop works for all jQuery effect functions, including slide, fade, and custom animations. The stop all specifies whether the animation queue should be cleared or not. The default is false, meaning only the current active animation is stopped, and any other ones will be allowed to perform after that stops. The go to end specifies whether or not to complete the current animation. Notice the default is false, which means just stop it. So by default, stop kills the current animation being performed. So if we look, see the panel. There it goes. At any time I want, I can tell it to stop. And it's done. I guess we can start it again by clicking on it, tell it to stop. Again, that effects we've already looked at. Let's finish up with callback and chaining. Callback I've already shown you. Again, a callback function is executed after the current effect is 100% finished. So, after you hide the paragraph slowly, then you just come up and say the paragraph is now hidden. You noticed, if you please watch again, I'm going to run it, and notice that the alert does not come up until the paragraph is 100% gone. If we do it without the callback function, watch the difference. See, the alert actually runs before the hide. Almost always is not going to be what you want. Finally, chaining. Again, with jQuery, you can chain together actions or methods. So we've got this. I want to copy that just to show you something. I guess there you are, going to show you it down here. So what should this do? This should grab any paragraph with an ID of P1, should change its color to red, it should slide it up over a 2-second period, then slide it back down over a 2-second period. So, red, up, down. And as you see here, the same exact thing, but typically, in fact, I'm going to even go further than where the author goes here. The author shows this, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with what the author shows. Originally, it looked like this. So originally it looked like that. The author says you can also make it look like this, which is true. But you can also make it look like this. That's usually the way you see it, where all the periods line up All right, all of them will work the same way. Any of them will work. Red up over 2 seconds, down over 2 seconds. All right, so we've come to the end of the second thing. We're talking about effects. I'm going to come back again in just a minute and start talking about the jQuery HTML. So I'll be back with that very shortly.